Video number 2, August 28th, 2020. Hello, Jim John here with you again. And again, if you heard my last video, there's been people who have been telling me maybe you should do a video and actually talk about things. And I'm having regular conversations with people, and they're going, man, I never thought about it that way. So this topic we're going to talk about, mail-in voting. Let me explain mail-in voting to you in a nutshell. It's vote fraud. Okay? I don't care what you've heard on television. I don't care what you're trying to explain to you. If vote by mail was a great idea, we'd have been doing it for hundreds of years. There's a reason they wanted people to go to a polling place to vote. All right? It's called chain of custody. Now, before I get into this, let me explain my bona fides for this. I am a ballot inspector, have been for 4 years. And when I was younger, my mother did it. So I was kind of carrying on her tradition, call it my civic duty. I didn't officially serve my country, so this is how I make up for it to make sure that elections are fair. Why are there ballot inspectors there? It's to make sure your vote counts. Now, you have people right now telling you, oh, because of this the virus, it's just going to be too dangerous, so you should just mail it in. Let me explain something to you. You remember going to the supermarket to get food? Yeah, you were in a longer line there than would be to vote. All right? It's garbage. So let me explain how your vote works. When you walk into the polling place, at least where I am, you walk in, you give your name, you have to show some sort of identification to prove you are. Now, there's ways around that. People do it all the time. I remember for the presidential election of 2016, people were walking in there showing their driver's license to vote, and I'd flip it over and notice that their driver's license was issued the day of the election. So who knows who that person was? Anyway, didn't stop them long as it matched and their address matched. We look up the name, look up the address, and make sure that line isn't crossed out. As in, once they come in there and we hand them a little chip to get their ballot, we cross their name off. So if somebody else comes in there saying they're that person, we don't let them vote because it shows you already voted. Or if an absentee ballot came in with that person's name, we check it against the list there and we go, oh, this person already voted. Take the absentee ballot, throw it out. That's the way it works. It's the best way. It's not a perfect system, but it keeps most people honest. You want your vote to count. So you go in there, you take a chip or whatever, some kind of a receipt to say, we've checked this person out, they can vote. You go over and somebody hands you a ballot. Now, where I am, there are paper ballots, and you put the little marks on them. And you go behind the booth. You do that privately. And when you walk out to one guy who was always standing there. There's somebody always standing there, and that ballot goes into the machine. Right? I think it's scanned as it goes in. Right? At the end of the night, there are people from both parties there, counting to make sure, even if the machine counted up the number of votes for one candidate or the other, there are people behind the scenes making sure that the vote count matches the number of ballots that they have. If there's a discrepancy and they have to recanvass, all those ballots are sealed, and we, as ballot inspectors, can go through them again and actually count them by hand if necessary. So, your ballot is handed to you, you go behind the curtain, you vote, you walk over and you put it right in the box. Chain of custody. Your vote went into a box. Counted by the machine once it goes in. Counted by hand at the end of the night. Okay? Sounds fair? Let's talk about mail-in voting. You get sent something in the mail, and I've already heard stories about people who've got things sent to their house. They don't even know who that person is. Oh, yeah, use this to mail in the ballot. All right? You fill out this ballot on paper, however you do it, and you drop it in the mailbox. Okay, chain of custody. Post person gets it. A postal employee gets it, who, by the way, whose party just endorsed one candidate and one party, and they take it. It goes through sorting locally, and who knows, it may go through sorting somewhere else, because if you mail that ballot in from somewhere else, who knows where it's going to go. And then it finally gets to, the Secretary of State's office in your state, the state capital somewhere, and they'll all be counting them there, right? When you voted at your precinct, those are your neighbors who are watching the ballot. Generally, when I'm working, people are walking up to me, giving their names. I know who they are before they walk in, when I see them. your neighbors, your friends. You do it by mail, it could be anybody. Or, worse than anybody, like, let's say, changing your vote. No. This is not I'm not supporting this party. Let's go ahead and throw this ballot out. How would you know that? How would you know actually that your vote is being counted at all? That's the downfall of mail-in voting. Different from absentee. Absentee, you request a ballot. Mail-in voting, they just sent them to everybody. Right? Now, one party is advocating mail-in voting, one party is not. Right? If I believe there's only one reason that one party is advocating mail-in voting, because I think that's the only way they can pull this off. Their loose-lit coalition of individual groups that they claim to support, I think they're losing it because those individual groups are starting to see right through their stuff. I'm being nice here. So as they're beginning to see through it, they realize we're going to have to do this anyway. And when it comes to vote fraud, I've written articles about this. When it comes, I can do a whole different thing on vote fraud, but this is just about mail-in voting. So there's a way to beat this, guys, and they really want to do this. But before I tell you how to beat it, remember that if you think mail-in voting is okay, and suddenly on November 4th and 5th, you start to realize that there's been a lot of vote fraud going on because of this, don't worry, because in the next election, you can vote by mail and get rid of those people, right? Wrong. That's the danger of this vote by mail thing. If they can get away with it once, you'll never get rid of these people. Because they'll just say, oh, here's what you got. Oh, by the way, I'm a software engineer for a living, database admin, system admin guy. So if down the road they can tell you, oh, this vote by mail stuff was just too hard, we'll just do it online next time. Oh, forget it. Right? If you do mail online, vote online, trust me, I'm saying this, I'm jumping the gun here. If you ever do vote online or vote via an app, if I have access to that database, I will determine the winner of that election. End of story, full stop. The person who has access to that database via the username, password, and where it's located will control the outcome of that election. I don't care how you voted, and I could even do it, and your receipt will show that you voted for whoever you voted for, but still, sorry. Anyway, so how do we beat this thing? Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's worried about it. What are you doing about it? This is what's been driving me nuts. What are you doing about it? First of all, if you're a regular person, here's how you battle this thing. Number one, on election day, the general election, primaries are just starting up now, but in the general election and future general elections, take the day off, right? You're going to go vote at the polling place, and you're going to do it early. If the polling place opens up at 7, be there at 6:55. Don't be surprised if there's a long line at that time. Fine, wait, you took the day off for it. Prepare for it. If you're worried about the COVID thing, wear your mask, wear your gloves, drink hand sanitizer. Don't drink any hand sanitizer. I'm kidding. But do whatever you got to do to protect yourself. Everybody stand 6 feet apart. No, make it 6.5. Feel better? Right. Whatever. Okay? Do that. Vote early. Here's why. Because part of the mail fraud's going to be the attempt that some piece of mail came in with your name on it saying that you voted for X. Or by you voting by mail, it never got there. Right? So if you have the option of voting by mail or going to the polling place, go to the polling place. That's number one. Right. Number two, when you go to vote, this is going to sound crazy. If you got a ballot or if you got one of those electronic machines, when your votes are complete, take a picture of what you did. Oh, crazy, right? If you did a mail-in vote, by the way, and that's the only way you get through, take a photocopy of that too. Here's why, especially with mail-in voting, because if they have to recanvass, how the heck do you recanvass? Recanvass means recount the votes. Best way to do it Everybody who voted got a copy of what they did. Okay. Number two is become part of the voting process. Now, people who know me as Jim John know that I've written about this before, right? They are always needing more volunteers. They never have enough people, especially for presidential general elections. Volunteer. Some cases, some states, you get paid for it. Yes, it's brutal, maybe 15-hour days, but consider it an important part of the service that you're doing for your country, especially if you happen to be a bit senior. And I know you're thinking, wait a minute, I got to be a ballot inspector where I got to sit there and have all these people walk in and any of them could have COVID? You're thinking that that could possibly happen and that could possibly kill you? Let me explain to you what a fraudulent election can do. Wear a mask. It's worth a sacrifice. So, if you're there, you can keep an eye on what's going on. If you're there and there is vote fraud, you can see it. No, not just be a keyboard warrior and talk about it later and blame George Soros or something. No, you need to be in the action. Get in there. And you don't have to go, 20 miles away. It's going to be in your community. You're going to be seeing your neighbors. You need to meet them anyway. That's a whole other story. But that's the way the election process should work. So you're going to vote in person. And if you can, I implore you to sign up to be a ballot inspector, a poll worker, whatever they call them in your community. You should be one. If you pull off number 2, it makes it easier to pull off number 3. Number 3, if it were I would challenge every mail-in vote that comes in. Here's why. Because the post office brings over votes. You don't know if that person actually did that. You have no way of knowing. Chain of custody. It got lost. That could have been the postal worker who just did that. You don't know. I'm not blaming every postal worker, but come on. You want to know that your vote is accurately counted. There's nothing guaranteeing that your vote is going to make it to the place to be counted. So since we all been under lockdown, Netflix. Have you been watching Narcos? They gave you pretty much a true story back when they had a fraudulent election in Mexico. And I'm going, with mail-in voting, that could easily happen here, where a bunch of votes just all of a sudden show up in some van and the van gets torched. Oops, don't know, can't count them. They're gone. They came through the mail. Oh, gee, somebody decided to put on some black clothes and a black hood and black mask and go and burn down the post office on election night. Not that anybody would ever do that, and Lord knows I don't want to ever give anybody any ideas. But if you suddenly don't trust the federal government and the people running the federal government, you don't trust them, right? Then why do you trust your election to the U.S. Postal Service? Let's think about that. If you want to put different people in charge, you're going to take your ballot and hand it to the USPS person who indirectly works for the person that you don't like. You're already making accusations, some of you out there. You're making accusations that, oh, he's just doing this to thwart the election. No. It was never gone through the mail. That was the reason. They tried this before, by the way, back around the 1860s. That's another story. And some of the excuses that you hear is people who are against mail-in voting simply want to disenfranchise minorities. Okay, I'm going to speak on this one as long as I got this here right now real quick about disenfranchising minorities when it comes to voting. Basically, because of voter ID, people shouldn't have to show ID because it disenfranchises against minorities. Like, I got news for you. Anybody who thinks that, you need to check your racism right there, right? Everybody in this country can get an ID. Even people who come out of prison can get an ID. In some states, you're required to have one. You need one to get everything else, but you don't need one to vote? Really? Everybody turns 18. Don't you still have to sign up for selective service? You got to have ID somewhere, folks. So anyway, that's what I would say about mail-in voting. Again, get there early. Record your own vote. If possible, sign up to be a poll worker. And if so, be ready to challenge all the mail-in votes to come in. This is Jim John. You guys have a good one. I've got nothing to do. You can hit a like button. I don't have any social media, so we'll go from there. Take care, guys. Talk to you next time.